Commander G1 stood on the bridge of the Eternal Vigilance, staring at the holographic display that showed the mining colony of Kepler-7. Red warning lights blinked across the tactical screen. 3 days ago, the colony had sent a distress signal. The Krex horde was attacking. The Krex were known throughout the galaxy as savage raiders. They moved in huge fleets, destroying everything in their path. No colony had ever survived a full Krex assault. Most were wiped out within hours. "Commander, we are receiving new data from the long-range sensors," said Lieutenant Hyunwoo, his blue-scaled hands dancing over the control panel. The young Aquarian officer looked confused as he read the incoming reports. Jiwan walked over to examine the data herself. Her red eyes, typical of her Martakian heritage, widened as she processed the information. The colony should have been destroyed by now. Instead, the sensor showed something impossible. "This cannot be right," she muttered. "Run the scan again." Hyunwoo nodded and initiated another deep scan. The results came back identical. The mining colony was still there. Not only was it still there, but the Krex forces appeared to be retreating. Captain Minho, a tall Zephyrian with silver skin, approached the command station. His warrior species had fought the Krex for centuries. He knew their tactics better than anyone. "Commander, there must be an error in the sensors," Minho said, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had survived dozens of battles. "The Krex do not retreat. They fight until everything is dead or they are dead." "That is what I thought too," Ji-won replied. She turned to the communications officer. "Ensign Suman, try to establish contact with the colony." The young human communications officer, one of only a few humans serving in the Galactic Defense Coalition, worked quickly at her station. Humans were still new to galactic society. Host species considered them primitive and weak. "I have contact, Commander," Suman announced. "The colony administrator is responding." "Put him through." The main screen flickered to life, showing a green-skinned Rigelian in mining clothes. His compound eyes were wide with what appeared to be excitement rather than fear. "Coalition ship. This is Administrator Taejun of Mining Colony Kepler-7. Thank the stars you have arrived, though I must say we have the situation well in hand." Ji-won blinked in surprise. "Administrator, our sensors show Krex forces in your system. What is your status?" "Oh yes, the Krex," Taejun said with what sounded like amusement. "They attacked 3 times over the past week. Each time they were driven back. The humans have been most helpful in organizing our defense." "Humans?" Minho stepped forward, his silver face showing disbelief. "There are humans on your colony?" "Indeed. A small transport crashed here several weeks ago. 12 humans survived. They have been quite remarkable." Ji-won exchanged glances with her senior officers. Humans were barely capable of space travel. Their weapons were primitive. Their military was considered a joke by most galactic standards. "Administrator, we need a full report on the Krex attacks and the current tactical situation," Ji-won said. "Of course, but perhaps you should speak directly with their leader. He can explain better than I can." The screen changed to show a different figure. This human appeared to be middle-aged with short dark hair and calm brown eyes. He wore what looked like makeshift armor created from mining equipment and salvaged materials. "Coalition vessel, this is Colonel Jae-hyun, United States Army. I am currently serving as military advisor to the Colony Defense Force." The bridge fell silent. A human colonel was claiming to have organized a defense against the Krex horde. It was like claiming to have taught fish to fly. "Colonel Jae-hyun," Ji-won said carefully, "can you provide us with a tactical assessment of the situation?" "Certainly, Commander. The Krex forces consist of approximately 40 vessels ranging from light raiders to heavy cruisers. They have conducted 3 major assault waves against our position. Each attack was repelled with minimal casualties on our side." Minho could not contain himself any longer. "That is impossible. No colony has ever survived even one Krex attack wave." Jae-hyun looked directly at the Zephyrian captain. "With respect, Captain, that was before they met humans. We do things differently." "What do you mean differently?" Ji-won asked. "The Krex fight like most species in the galaxy. They follow predictable patterns. They rely on overwhelming force and fear, but they have never faced an enemy that adapts faster than they can react." Hyunwoo looked up from his sensor station. "Commander, I am detecting massive changes to the colony infrastructure. It appears they have constructed defensive positions using mining equipment." "Not just mining equipment," Jae-hyun said. We salvaged everything we could from our crashed ship and integrated it with local resources. The result is a defensive network that the Kreks do not know how to handle. But how did you organize the colonists to fight? Minho asked. Mining colonists are not warriors. Everyone can be a warrior if they are properly motivated and trained, Jae-hyun replied. We taught them that they were not victims waiting to be rescued. They were defenders protecting their home. Ji-won was beginning to understand why her sensors had been showing such confusing readings. Colonel, are you saying that you turned a mining colony into a military fortress? Not a fortress, Commander. Something better. We turned it into a trap. The tactical display updated to show the colony in detail. What had once been a simple mining operation was now a complex network of interconnected defensive positions. Artillery made from mining equipment was positioned at key points. The entire asteroid field around the colony had been turned into a maze designed to channel attacking forces into kill zones. The first Kreks attack came exactly as we expected, Jae-hyun continued. They sent light forces to test our defenses. We let them get close enough to think they had found weakness, then we hit them hard. They retreated to regroup. The second attack was larger. They tried to overwhelm our positions with numbers. But we had prepared for that too. We used their own tactics against them, making them think they were winning right up until the moment they realized they were surrounded. And the third attack? Ji-won asked. The third attack never really began. By then we had captured enough Kreks equipment to turn their own weapons against them. When they saw their own ships firing on them, their morale broke completely. Minho stared at the tactical display in amazement. You captured Kreks vessels? 3 light cruisers and 7 raiders. The crews surrendered when they realized they were trapped. Turns out the Kreks are not as fearless as everyone believes. They just never faced anyone who was not afraid of them. Ji-won felt a chill run through her. She was beginning to understand something important about humans. They did not see overwhelming odds as a reason to surrender. They saw them as a puzzle to be solved. Colonel, what is your current status regarding Kreks forces? The remaining Kreks fleet is maintaining distance at the edge of the system. They appear to be waiting for reinforcements or new orders. We are prepared for whatever they decide to do next. How many casualties have you taken? 2 miners with minor injuries during the first attack. No fatalities on our side. The bridge fell completely silent. No casualties while fighting off 3 Kreks attacks. It was beyond impossible. It was miraculous. Commander, Ensign Suman called out. I am receiving priority communications from Coalition High Command. They are ordering us to proceed to the colony immediately and provide full support to the human forces. Ji-won nodded slowly. She was beginning to realize that humanity might be far more dangerous than anyone in the galaxy had imagined. Not because they were cruel or savage, but because they refused to accept that some fights could not be won. Set course for Kepler 7, she ordered. Maximum speed. As the Eternal Vigilance moved toward the mining colony, Ji-won could not shake the feeling that this first contact with human military capabilities was going to change everything the galaxy thought it knew about warfare. The Eternal Vigilance dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler 7 system. Commander Ji-won stood on the bridge, watching as the colony came into view on the main display. What she saw made her question everything she had learned at the Coalition Military Academy. The mining colony had been completely transformed. Where there should have been simple habitation domes and extraction equipment, there was now a fortress that would make most military installations look primitive. Every surface bristled with weapons. Every angle had been calculated for maximum defensive advantage. This is not possible, Captain Minho whispered. They have been here less than a month. Lieutenant Hyun-woo was studying his sensor readings with growing amazement. Commander, the energy signatures are bizarre. They have somehow integrated human technology with Kreks weapon systems and mining equipment. According to my analysis, none of this should actually work. And yet it does work, Ji-won observed. Prepare a shuttle. I want to meet these humans face to face. An hour later, Ji-won found herself walking through the colony alongside Minho and Hyun-woo. What struck her immediately was not the weapons or the fortifications. It was the atmosphere. The colonists moved with purpose and confidence. These were not frightened refugees waiting to be saved. These were soldiers who believed they had already won. A human soldier approached them. He was shorter than most species Ji-won had encountered, with a stocky build and alert eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. His makeshift armor was covered in strange symbols and writing. Commander Ji-won, welcome to Firebase Delta. I am Sergeant First Class Dongyun, United States Army Rangers. Colonel Jaehyun is waiting for you in the command center. Jiwon noticed how Dongyun moved as they walked. Every step was calculated. His eyes constantly scanned their surroundings. This was not just a soldier. This was a warrior who expected danger at any moment and was prepared for it. The command center was located in what had once been the main mining administration building. Now it looked like something from a military installation. Holographic displays showed every approach to the colony. Communication stations buzzed with activity. And in the center of it all stood Colonel Jaehyun, studying a tactical map with another human. "Commander, thank you for coming," Jaehyun said, looking up with a slight smile. "This is Staff Sergeant Yoonji, our combat engineer. She is responsible for most of what you see around you." The female soldier nodded in greeting. She was examining a piece of Krex technology on a workbench nearby. Her hands moved with confidence as she integrated it into a human power system. "How is this possible?" Minho asked, gesturing at the displays and equipment. "Your species barely has functional space travel. Yet you have created all of this in weeks." Yoonji looked up from her work. "We improvise. We adapt, we overcome. That is what we do." "But the technology levels are completely incompatible," Hyunwoo protested. "Human systems operate on different principles than Krex systems. They should not interface at all." "They should not," Yoonji agreed. "But we do not let should stop us. We make it work because we need it to work." Jaehyun pulled up a holographic display showing the entire colony layout. "Commander, let me show you what we have built here. This is not just a defensive position. This is what my people call a forward operating base." He expanded the image to show the asteroid field surrounding the colony. Red markers indicated dozens of hidden positions. Blue markers showed sensor arrays and communication relays. Green markers identified supply caches and fallback positions. We have divided the colony into defensive sectors. Each sector can operate independently if needed. We have redundant power systems, multiple communication networks, and supply lines that cannot be easily cut. Jiwon studied the layout with growing respect. "This is extremely sophisticated military planning." "This is basic American military doctrine," Jaehyun replied. "We never rely on a single point of defense. We never assume our primary systems will work. We always have backup plans for our backup plans." Dongyun stepped forward and highlighted a section of the display. "The colonists themselves have been organized into fire teams. We have spent the past weeks training them in basic combat tactics, weapons handling, and emergency procedures." "You trained civilians to fight the Krex?" Minho sounded incredulous. "We trained civilians to defend their homes," Dongyun corrected. "There is a difference. Fear makes people weak. Purpose makes them strong. We gave them purpose." As if to demonstrate, a group of colonists walked past the command center. They moved in formation, checking their equipment and discussing defensive positions. These were miners and technicians who had been transformed into a functional military unit. "The Krex rely on fear," Jaehyun explained. "They expect their enemies to panic and scatter. When we did not panic, when we fought back with coordination and planning, they did not know how to respond." "But how did you convince the colonists to fight?" Jiwon asked. "Most species flee when faced with the Krex." Yoonji spoke up from her workbench. "We told them the truth. Running was not an option. Surrender was not an option. The only option was to fight and win. Once they understood that, they became dangerous." A comm signal chimed and one of the colonist soldiers answered it. "Command, this is Observation Post 3. We have movement in Sector 7. Multiple Krex vessels approaching from bearing 270. Instantly, the atmosphere in the command center changed. Every human moved with sudden purpose. Jaehyun pulled up a tactical overview while Dongyun began issuing orders through his communication device. "How many vessels?" Jaehyun asked calmly. 15 contacts. Mixture of raiders and cruisers. They are moving into attack formation." Minho reached for his weapon. "We should return to our ship and prepare for combat." "No need," Jaehyun said. "Watch and learn how humans fight." The main display showed the approaching Krex fleet. They were moving in their standard attack pattern, spreading out to surround the colony before closing in for the kill. It was a tactic that had worked for them thousands of times across hundreds of worlds. Jaehyun watched their approach with the calm expression of someone watching a training exercise. "Yoonji, are the surprises ready?" "All systems green, Colonel." "Dongyun, what is the status of the volunteer fire teams?" "All teams report ready." "They are eager to show our guests what we have learned." Jiwan watched in fascination as the humans coordinated their defense. There was no panic, no fear, no desperate scrambling to prepare. Everything moved like a well-rehearsed performance. The Krex fleet entered the asteroid field, moving toward the colony with confidence. They had no idea what was waiting for them. "Light them up," Jae-hyun ordered. Suddenly, the asteroid field came alive. Hidden weapons platforms activated throughout the field. Salvaged Krex weapons began firing with deadly accuracy. The mining equipment that Yoonji had converted into artillery opened up from positions that the Krex could not have predicted. But what shocked Jiwan most was the coordination. Every shot was calculated. Every movement was planned. The humans were not just defending. They were conducting a symphony of destruction. 3 Krex raiders exploded in quick succession as they flew into a carefully prepared kill zone. 2 cruisers broke formation, trying to retreat, only to find themselves facing more hidden weapons. The remaining vessels scattered in confusion. "Second phase," Jae-hyun said calmly. The captured Krex vessels that the humans had taken in previous battles suddenly activated. They moved from hidden positions behind asteroids, their weapons powered by human-modified systems. To the attacking Krex, it looked like their own ships were betraying them. The psychological effect was immediate. The Krex fleet broke apart completely. Ships fled in every direction, desperate to escape what they perceived as treachery within their own ranks. Through it all, the human defenders worked with mechanical precision. Colonist fire teams reported target acquisitions. Yoonji monitored power levels and ammunition supplies. Donghyun coordinated defensive positions with the calm voice of someone discussing dinner plans. In less than 10 minutes, the battle was over. 8 Krex vessels had been destroyed. The remaining 7 were fleeing toward the edge of the system at maximum speed. Jiwan stood in stunned silence. She had witnessed Krex attacks before. They were terrifying displays of savage violence. But this had been different. This had been a massacre conducted with cold efficiency. "That is how Americans fight," Jae-hyun said, turning to face her. "We do not just react to our enemies. We control them. We make them fight our battle on our terms. We turn their strengths into weaknesses." Minho finally found his voice. "You did not just defeat them. You broke them." "Yes," Donghyun agreed. "Fear is a weapon. We taught the Krex to fear us." Hyunwoo was studying his readings with wide eyes. "Commander, the human tactics are unlike anything in our military databases. They do not fight for survival. They fight for victory." Jiwan nodded slowly. She was beginning to understand something terrifying about humans. They did not see war as a tragedy to be endured. They saw it as a problem to be solved, and they were very good at solving problems. "Colonel Jae-hyun," she said quietly, "my superiors are going to want a full report on your methods." Jae-hyun smiled. "We would be happy to teach them. The galaxy has a lot to learn about the American way of war." General Seokjin sat in his private office aboard the Coalition Strategic Command Station, staring at reports that made no sense. He had been a military commander for 40 years. He had fought in 17 major campaigns. He thought he understood warfare, but these human reports were challenging everything he believed. His door chimed and Admiral Hanel entered. The elderly crystalline officer looked tired, her normally bright blue skin appearing dull under the office lights. "You have read the reports from Kepler-7?" she asked. "I have read them 3 times, Seokjin replied. "I still cannot believe them." Hanul sat down heavily. "Believe them. I have received similar reports from 6 other sectors. Wherever these humans appear, warfare changes completely." Seokjin pulled up a holographic display showing a star map. Red markers indicated conflict zones across the galaxy. In the past month, 12 of those zones had turned blue, indicating resolved conflicts. Small human advisory teams had been present at every single one. "How many humans are there in total?" he asked. "According to our census, approximately 400 humans are currently serving as military advisors across coalition space. Most of them are from a nation called the United States of America." 400, Seokjin repeated. 400 individuals are changing the nature of galactic warfare. He opened a specific report file. "Look at this case from the Deneb system. A mining outpost was under siege by pirate forces. The colonists were ready to surrender. Then 2 human advisors arrived. Within a week, the pirates were begging to surrender." Hanul nodded. "I know that case. Lieutenant Colonel Young-ho investigated it personally. What those humans did was remarkable and terrifying. Seokjin read from the report. The humans taught the colonists something called guerrilla warfare. They did not meet the pirates in direct combat. Instead, they made every moment the pirates spent on that world a nightmare. They sabotaged equipment in ways that seemed like accidents. They spread rumors through pirate communication channels that made the pirates distrust each other. They conducted hit-and-run attacks that never gave the pirates a moment of peace. Hanil pulled up footage from the incident. Watch this. This is security footage from the pirate base camp. The video showed pirate soldiers sitting around a fire. They looked nervous, constantly glancing at the darkness around them. Then one of them screamed and pointed at something in the shadows. The entire camp erupted in panic, soldiers firing their weapons at nothing. There was no actual attack, Hanul explained. The humans simply moved through the darkness making sounds. The pirates, already exhausted and paranoid, started seeing threats everywhere. Within 3 days, half the pirate force had deserted. Seokjin closed the file and opened another. This report from the Altair colonies is even stranger. A human advisor named Major Minji helped defend against a corporate military invasion. She did not destroy the enemy forces. She convinced them to join the colonists. How is that possible? She used what humans call psychological operations. She broadcast messages to the enemy soldiers telling them they were fighting for a corrupt corporation that did not care about them. She showed them evidence of their commanders lying to them. She offered them a better future if they switched sides. Hanul shook her head in wonder. The invasion force commander tried to execute soldiers who listened to the broadcasts. That caused a mutiny. The entire invasion collapsed from within. Seokjin stood and paced his office. Do you see what this means? Humans do not just fight wars. They attack the enemy's mind. They break their will to fight before the battle even begins. There is more, Hanul said quietly. She pulled up another file. This is Lieutenant Colonel Young-ho's full analysis. He has been studying human military doctrine for the past month. What he has discovered is disturbing. The report appeared on the display. Seokjin began reading and felt his blood run cold. Humans have a concept they call total war, Hanul explained. It means they do not distinguish between military and civilian resources during conflict. Everything becomes a weapon. Everything becomes a target. They mobilize their entire society for warfare. That is barbaric, Seokjin protested. Perhaps. But it is also effective. When humans decide to fight, they commit completely. There is no half measure. No political limitation on their military actions. They fight to win at any cost. Seokjin continued reading. They have another concept called acceptable losses. They calculate how many casualties they can sustain while still achieving their objectives. They are willing to accept massive damage if it means ultimate victory. Most species will surrender when casualties reach 10%, Hanul said. Humans have historical records of battles where they sustained 70% casualties and continued fighting. The general sat down slowly. Why? Why would any species be willing to sacrifice so much? Young-ho asked a human advisor that question. The human response was simple. They said surrender was not an acceptable option. They would rather die fighting than live in defeat. Seokjin opened another section of the report. This one detailed something called Hearts and Minds campaigns. What is this? That is perhaps the most sophisticated aspect of human warfare. They understand that winning battles is not enough. They need to win the support of populations. They provide aid, build infrastructure, and show people that life is better with human help. But we do that too. We provide humanitarian assistance. Not like humans do, Hanul corrected. We provide assistance out of obligation. Humans provide assistance as a weapon. They make populations dependent on them. They create loyalty through generosity. And once they have that loyalty, those populations will fight for human interests. A communication chimed on Seokjin's desk. His aide appeared on the screen. General, Lieutenant Colonel Young-ho is here to see you. He says it is urgent. Send him in. Young-ho entered quickly. The young officer looked excited and worried at the same time. He carried a data pad filled with information. General Admiral, I have just completed my investigation into human training methods. You need to see this immediately. He activated his data pad and a video began playing. It showed human soldiers training colonist volunteers. But this was not normal military training. Watch what they are doing, Young-ho said. They are not just teaching combat techniques. They are teaching a philosophy. On the video, a human instructor was speaking to a group of alien recruits. Your enemy wants you to be afraid. Your fear is their greatest weapon. We are going to teach you to turn that fear into anger, and we are going to teach you to turn that anger into action. Another video showed human advisors teaching tactical planning, but the approach was completely different from coalition methods. Coalition doctrine teaches soldiers to follow orders and execute predetermined plans, Young-ho explained. Humans teach soldiers to think independently and adapt constantly. They want every soldier to be able to make command decisions. Seokjin watched as human instructors put their students through scenarios where all the plans failed, where commanders were killed, where everything went wrong. And in each case, the students were forced to improvise solutions. They are teaching controlled chaos, Hanul observed. Exactly, Young-ho agreed. Humans expect everything to go wrong. They plan for failure. And when failure happens, they already know how to respond. The lieutenant colonel pulled up more data. I have analyzed 53 conflicts where humans served as advisors. In every case, the human approach was the same. They studied the enemy. They found weaknesses. Then they exploited those weaknesses without mercy. But the truly frightening part is how they think about warfare itself. To most species, war is a terrible necessity, something to be avoided when possible and ended quickly when necessary. To humans, war is simply another problem to solve. They approach it with the same creativity and determination they apply to any challenge. They are not horrified by war. They are engaged by it. Seokjin looked at the star map again. More conflict zones were turning blue. Human advisors were spreading across coalition space, changing how everyone thought about military operations. We created a special committee to study the human impact, he said. Representatives from every major military power will attend. We need to understand what humans are doing to our understanding of warfare. What do you think they will conclude? Hanul asked. I think they will conclude that we have been playing at war for centuries while humans have perfected it. Young-ho cleared his throat nervously. General, there is one more thing. I interviewed several human advisors about their methods. I asked them where they learned these techniques. And they said this is basic doctrine taught to every American soldier. What we are seeing is not their most advanced warfare methods. This is their standard approach to conflict. The room fell silent. If this was standard human military thinking, what were their advanced methods like? Seokjin stood and looked out at the stars. We need to convene that committee immediately. The galaxy needs to understand what we are dealing with. Are humans a threat? Hanul asked quietly. No, Seokjin replied slowly. They are our allies, but they are also the most dangerous allies we could have, because once the galaxy learns to fight like humans, warfare will never be the same again. Young-ho gathered his data pads. I am continuing. Marshal Sunho stood on the bridge of the Hegemony flagship Dominance, watching the blue-green planet of Kepler Prime rotating slowly below. His Crimson Legion, the most elite fighting force in the galaxy, was preparing for what should have been a simple training exercise. He did not believe the reports about human military capabilities. The Hegemony Empire had conquered 40 star systems. They had defeated every enemy they had ever faced. These humans were newcomers, barely capable of spaceflight. How dangerous could they really be? Marshal, the human forces have arrived, reported his tactical officer, Commander Kyungmin. On the display, a small human transport ship entered orbit. It was tiny compared to the massive Hegemony warships. The ship looked old and worn with visible repair patches on its hull. How many soldiers do they have? Sunho asked. Scans show approximately 50 humans aboard. They are requesting permission to land at the designated training area. Sunho laughed. 50 soldiers against my Crimson Legion? This will be over in an hour. The exercise rules were simple. Both forces would conduct simulated combat operations on the surface of Kepler Prime. The first force to capture the opposing command center would win. All weapons would be set to training mode, causing no real damage but registering hits for scoring purposes. Commander Kyungmin looked concerned. Marshal, intelligence suggests we should take the humans seriously. Their combat record is unusual. Unusual means lucky, Sunho replied. Today their luck ends. The Crimson Legion will show them what real warriors look like. The human transport landed at the southern training zone. Sunho watched as the humans disembarked. They moved quickly and efficiently, immediately establishing a defensive perimeter around their landing site. Leading them was a human female with short dark hair and alert eyes. She wore combat armor that looked advanced, despite the worn condition of her ship. This was Major Minji, the human commander. Beside her stood Captain Taeyang, a tall human male who carried himself with quiet confidence. He immediately began directing soldiers to establish observation posts around their position. "Both forces are ready," Kyungmin reported. "We can begin on your order." "Execute Standard Assault Pattern Alpha," Sunho commanded. "I want this finished before midday." The Crimson Legion moved forward in perfect formation. 3,000 elite soldiers advanced across the training ground toward the human position. They moved with precision, each unit coordinating perfectly with the others. Sunho watched from his command ship, confident in his inevitable victory. The Crimson Legion had never lost a training exercise. They would not lose to 50 humans. The first indication that something was wrong came 10 minutes into the advance. Forward units reported that the humans had vanished from their landing zone. "What do you mean they vanished?" Sunho demanded. "Sir, they were there and then they were gone. We cannot locate them on any sensors." Kyungmin studied his tactical display with growing confusion. "Marshal, this is impossible. 50 soldiers cannot just disappear." "Find them," Sunho ordered. "They must be hiding somewhere nearby." What happened next was something the Crimson Legion would never forget. The humans did not engage in traditional combat. They appeared from nowhere, struck hard and vanished before the Legion could respond. Small teams of humans hit supply lines, disabled communication relays, and eliminated command posts. They moved through the training ground like ghosts, always knowing exactly where the Legion forces were while remaining invisible themselves. Major Minji had divided her 50 soldiers into 10 5-person teams. Each team operated independently, but with perfect coordination. They used the terrain, the weather, and the Legion's own tactics against them. Captain Taeyang led one of the teams personally. They infiltrated deep behind Legion lines and disabled the main command post's communication array. By the time the Legion realized what happened, 6 of their command posts had been eliminated. "How are they doing this?" Sunho shouted. "We have 3,000 soldiers. They have 50. Kyungmin was reading reports with wide eyes. "Sir, they are not fighting like any force we have encountered. They strike where we are weakest, avoid our strengths entirely, and disappear before we can counterattack. Then find their weaknesses and exploit them. That is the problem, sir. They do not appear to have any weaknesses. They have prepared for everything." The exercise continued for another hour. The Crimson Legion tried every tactic they knew. They attempted to surround the humans, but the humans were never where the Legion expected them to be. They tried to force a direct confrontation, but the humans refused to engage on the Legion's terms. Instead, the humans did something completely unexpected. They went on the offensive. Major Minji led her forces in a direct assault on the Legion's main base. But this was not a conventional assault. The humans used what they called shock and awe tactics. They hit every defensive position simultaneously with overwhelming force. They used captured Legion equipment against its former owners. They created chaos and confusion, making the Legion soldiers unable to coordinate their defense. Captain Taeyang's team breached the command center while the defenders were still trying to understand what was happening. Within minutes, the exercise was over. Total time, 1 hour and 47 minutes. Final score, humans victorious with 0 casualties. Crimson Legion, complete defeat. Sunho sat in stunned silence. This was impossible. The Crimson Legion did not lose. They especially did not lose to a force 1/60th their size. He demanded a meeting with Major Minji on neutral ground. She arrived with Captain Taeyang, both looking calm and professional. "How did you do this?" Sunho asked immediately. "My forces are the best in the galaxy." Minji smiled slightly. "Marshal, your forces are excellent. They are disciplined, well-trained, and they follow orders perfectly. Then how did you defeat us so easily? Because you fight like everyone else in the galaxy fights. You follow predictable patterns. You rely on superior numbers and firepower. You expect your enemies to meet you in direct combat." Taeyang spoke up. "We do not fight fair. We fight to win. There is a difference." Sunho felt his pride burning. "You used ambush tactics and guerrilla warfare. That is not honorable combat." "No, it is effective combat," Minji corrected. "Honor does not win wars. Victory wins wars. We taught your soldiers an important lesson today." "What lesson?" "That size and strength mean nothing if you cannot adapt. The Crimson Legion is a hammer. Very powerful, very impressive. But we are water. We flow around obstacles. We find every crack and weakness. And eventually water breaks even the strongest hammer." Kyungmin had been studying the after-action reports. Major, our analysis shows you had prepared for every possible tactic we might use. How did you predict our movements so accurately? We studied your previous exercises, Taeyang explained. You have fought the same way for decades. You are excellent at what you do, but you never change. That makes you predictable. Sunho felt something he had not felt in years, doubt. What would you have done if we had changed our tactics? We prepared for that too, Minji said. We had contingency plans for 17 different scenarios. When you did not use any of them, we implemented Plan 18. Exploit your predictability. The marshal looked at the human major with new understanding. You came here with a plan to lose, did you not? You were prepared to be defeated. Of course, Minji agreed. We always prepare for defeat. That way, when things go wrong, we are not surprised. We simply adapt and keep fighting. But you did not need those plans. This time we did not. Next time we might. The key is always being ready for the worst possible outcome. Sunho sat down heavily. I need to understand this human way of warfare. My superiors will demand answers. Minji exchanged glances with Taeyang. Marshal, we can teach you. But you must understand something first. Human military doctrine is not just about tactics and weapons. It is about mindset. What do you mean? We call it escalation dominance, Taeyang explained. It means we are always prepared to increase the level of conflict beyond what our opponent can match. If they hit us with 10, we hit back with 20. If they hit us with 20, we hit back with 50. That sounds like a recipe for endless war. No, Minji said firmly. It is a recipe for ending war quickly. Our enemies learn very fast that fighting us costs more than they can afford to pay. So they stop fighting. Kyungmin was taking notes rapidly. This concept of escalation dominance, does it have limits? No, both humans said simultaneously. The simple answer sent chills through Sunho. You mean you will continue escalating no matter what? Until we win, Minji confirmed. That is the point. We do not fight limited wars. We do not accept stalemates. We fight until the enemy surrenders or is destroyed. And if the cost becomes too high? Taeyang smiled grimly. Then we pay it. Because surrender is not in our vocabulary. The meeting continued for hours. The humans explained their military philosophy in detail. They talked about concepts like acceptable losses, strategic depth, and total war mobilization. Each concept was more frightening than the last. Your species has been fighting wars for its entire existence, Sunho observed. You have perfected violence. We have studied violence, Minji corrected. Every human conflict taught us lessons. Every defeat made us stronger. We do not repeat mistakes. As the meeting ended, Sunho found himself both impressed and terrified. The humans were not just skilled warriors. They were professionals who had turned warfare into a science. Major, one final question, he said. Why do humans fight so well? What makes you different from other species? Minji considered the question carefully. Most species see war as an interruption of normal life, something to survive and move past. Humans see war as a test, a challenge to overcome. We do not just want to survive war. We want to master it. And have you mastered it? We are still learning, Taeyang said. Every conflict teaches us something new. We will never stop improving. After the humans left, Sunho sat with Kyungmin reviewing the exercise results. What will you tell the High Command? Kyungmin asked. I will tell them the truth. That we are fortunate humans are our allies. Because if they were our enemies, we would already be defeated. Admiral Hanul looked around the conference room aboard Harmony Point Station. The secret meeting had brought together the most powerful military leaders from across the galaxy. Every major civilization had sent representatives. What they were about to discuss could change the future of galactic warfare forever. Thank you all for coming, she began. We are here to discuss what some are calling the human problem. Marshal Yuna of the Crystalline Empire spoke first. Her translucent blue body seemed to glow with intensity. Problem is too gentle a word. The humans are revolutionizing warfare. Every conflict they touch changes completely. General Wu Jin of the Trade Federation nodded agreement. His forearms gestured as he spoke. My analysts have studied 73 conflicts involving human advisors. In every case, the human approach succeeded where traditional methods had failed. That should be good news, said Colonel Soyoung of the Nomad Fleets. Humans are our allies. Their success benefits us all, does it? Asked Marshal Yuna. Or are we creating something we cannot control? Admiral Hanul activated a holographic display. Let me share what our intelligence services have discovered about human military psychology. The display showed data from hundreds of interviews with human soldiers and advisors. Charts and graphs illustrated patterns in human military thinking. First, we must understand that humans do not see war the way we do. To most species, war is a failure of diplomacy, a terrible necessity when all else fails. Humans see it differently. She pulled up interview transcripts. When asked why they fight so well, humans consistently give similar answers. They say war is a test, a challenge, an opportunity to prove themselves. General Wu Jin leaned forward. They enjoy combat? Not exactly. They find meaning in it, purpose. Humans seem to need challenges to overcome. When faced with impossible odds, they become more focused, not less. Marshal Sunho, attending via secure link from Hegemony Space, spoke up. I witnessed this personally. When my Crimson Legion appeared to have the advantage, the humans became more aggressive. They did not fear our superior numbers. They saw them as a problem to solve. Colonel So-young studied the data carefully. This talks about something called acceptable losses. Can someone explain? Admiral Hanul grimaced. That is perhaps the most disturbing aspect of human military thinking. Humans calculate in advance how many casualties they can sustain while still achieving their objectives. All militaries do that. Yuna pointed out, not like humans do. Most species will surrender or retreat when casualties reach 10 to 15%. Humans have historical records of battles where they sustained 50, 60, even 70% casualties and continued fighting. The room fell silent. Why would they do that? So-young asked quietly. Because they value victory more than survival. Because surrender is literally worse than death in their military culture. General Wu Jin pulled up additional data. I have reviewed human military history. They have been fighting continuously for their entire existence as a species. Every generation has experienced war. They have perfected it through thousands of years of constant practice. Marshal Yuna activated another display. Look at this analysis from our Psychological Warfare Division. It compares how different species respond to defeat. The display showed various scenarios. Most species, when defeated, would retreat, regroup, and negotiate. Humans did something different. When humans lose a battle, they study what went wrong. They adapt. They come back stronger. Defeat does not discourage them. It educates them. I have seen this, Sunho confirmed. During our training exercise, my forces won several early engagements. Instead of being discouraged, the humans analyzed each loss and adjusted their tactics. By the end, we could not touch them. Admiral Hanul brought up another set of documents. This is even more concerning. Our analysts have discovered that what we are seeing from human advisors is not their most advanced military thinking. What do you mean? Asked So-young. The humans serving as advisors are mostly junior officers and enlisted soldiers. They are using what humans consider basic military doctrine. We have not yet seen what their senior commanders are capable of. The implications hung in the air like a physical weight. General Wu Jin spoke carefully. Are we suggesting that humans might be a threat to galactic security? No, Hanul said firmly. Humans are our allies and have proven loyal. But we must understand what we are dealing with. Because other species are learning human methods. And those methods are terrifying. She pulled up footage from recent conflicts. Watch this. This is a colony defense force trained by human advisors. They are facing pirates who outnumber them 3-1. The video showed defenders who fought with human-style tactics. They did not just repel the attack. They destroyed the pirate force completely, pursuing fleeing ships and eliminating them with cold efficiency. The pirates surrendered. The defenders did not accept the surrender until every pirate weapon was disabled and every pirate ship was captured. Total victory, no mercy. Marshal Yuna looked disturbed. That is not how we fight. We accept honorable surrender. Humans do not fight honorably. They fight effectively, and they are teaching the galaxy to do the same. Colonel So-young pulled up more data. Our intelligence suggests that human military philosophy is based on something they call total war. Can someone explain? Admiral Hanul nodded. Total war means that everything becomes a weapon. All resources, all populations, all infrastructure. When humans commit to war, their entire society mobilizes. But that is barbaric, Yuna protested. It is effective, Wu Jin countered. My economists have studied human military production. When they decide to fight, they can produce weapons and equipment at rates that dwarf any other species. Sunho spoke up. There is another factor we must consider. Humans have introduced something they call psychological operations. They do not just fight the enemy's military. They attack the enemy's will to fight. He shared footage from various human-advised campaigns. In each case, human psychological operations had convinced enemy forces that fighting was hopeless. Soldiers deserted. Commanders surrendered without battle. Entire campaigns ended before they truly began. This is what frightens me most, Sun Ho continued. Humans understand that the most important battlefield is the mind. They defeat enemies by making them believe they are already beaten. Admiral Hanul brought the meeting back to focus. We need to address the core question. Are humans dangerous? Yes, said Yuna immediately. But not in the way you think, Wu Jin added. Humans are dangerous because they are competent, because they refuse to accept limitations, because they see every problem as solvable. So Jung had been quiet, studying all the data. Now she spoke. I have a different concern. What happens when humans face an enemy they cannot defeat? What happens when their methods fail? They do not fail, Sun Ho said quietly. That is what makes them terrifying. They simply escalate until they win. But everything has limits. Do humans? Hanul asked. Our analysis suggests they do not believe in limits. They will continue fighting, continue escalating, continue adapting until either they win or they are completely destroyed. Marshal Yuna stood and paced the room. Let me share something my intelligence service discovered. We interviewed human soldiers about their most fundamental military principle. She pulled up a document. Every human soldier learned something called the warrior ethos. Part of it says this: I will never accept defeat. I will never quit. I will never leave a fallen comrade. It sounds noble, So Young observed. It is also inflexible. Humans do not have a cultural concept of honorable surrender. They fight until they win or until they are dead. There is no middle ground. General Wu Jin brought up economic data. Consider what this means for future conflicts. If humans become involved in a war, they will prosecute it with every resource available. They will not stop at partial victory. They will not negotiate stalemate. They will demand unconditional surrender. And if the enemy refuses, Yuna asked, then the war continues until one side is destroyed. The room fell into somber silence. Admiral Hanul finally spoke. We are not here to decide if humans are dangerous. We already know they are. We are here to decide what to do about it. We do nothing, Sun Ho said firmly. Humans are our allies. We should be grateful for that. Because the alternative is unthinkable. I agree, Wu Jin said. Instead of fearing human capabilities, we should lead. The grand ceremony hall aboard the Eternal Vigilance was filled with representatives from every major civilization in the galaxy. Flags and banners from hundreds of worlds decorated the walls. This was a historic moment, and everyone knew it. Commander Jiwan stood at attention on the main platform, wearing her formal dress uniform. Beside her stood Colonel Jaehyun, also in his finest military dress. The past 6 months had changed everything. What had begun with a simple distress call from a mining colony had transformed the entire galaxy's understanding of warfare. Admiral Hanul stepped forward to address the assembled crowd. Her voice carried clearly through the hall. Today we gather to recognize excellence in military service. The Coalition Defense Medal of Honor is our highest award, given only to those who have demonstrated exceptional courage and skill in the defense of civilized space. She turned to face Jaehyun directly. Colonel Jaehyun, you and your fellow humans have revolutionized our understanding of military operations. You have saved countless lives through your innovative tactics and unwavering dedication. Hanul placed the Star of Honor around Jaehyun's neck. The medal, made from rare crystalline material that glowed with inner light, symbolized the highest respect the galaxy could offer. On behalf of the Galactic Defense Coalition, I formally welcome humanity as senior military advisors. Your wisdom and experience will help guide us all toward a more secure future. The hall erupted in applause, but Jiwan noticed something interesting. The applause was respectful but restrained. There was admiration in the room, certainly, but there was also something else. Fear. After the public ceremony ended, a private reception was held for senior officers. Jiwan found herself standing near a group of high-ranking commanders who did not realize she could hear their conversation. General Seokjin was speaking quietly with Marshal Yuna. The humans have changed everything. My tactical officers are completely rewriting our doctrine manuals. Mine as well, Yuna replied. But I wonder if we truly understand what we are doing. We are teaching the galaxy to fight like humans. What happens when that knowledge spreads to our enemies? Then everyone will fight like humans, and the galaxy will become a much more dangerous place. Jiwan moved away from the conversation and found Admiral Hanul standing alone, looking out at the stars through the observation window. You heard them, Hanul said without turning around. I did. They fear us. They fear what you represent. Change. Unpredictability. Competence that makes their centuries of military tradition seem obsolete. Jiwan stood beside the Admiral. Is that why you really awarded us these honors? To show that you control us? Hanul smiled slightly. You are perceptive. Yes, partly, but also because you genuinely deserve recognition. What your people have accomplished is remarkable. She turned to face Jiwan. Tell me honestly, do humans enjoy war? Jiwan considered the question carefully. No, we do not enjoy the suffering war causes, but we cannot deny that we are good at it, and there is satisfaction in doing something well, even when that something is terrible. That is what frightens people. You are not reluctant warriors. You are professionals who have mastered your craft. Across the room, Colonel Jae-hyun was surrounded by alien officers asking questions about human military tactics. He answered patiently, explaining concepts that were completely foreign to galactic thinking. Major Minji and Captain Taeyang stood nearby, also fielding questions. The interest in human methods had exploded over the past months. Every military academy in coalition space now wanted human instructors. Lieutenant Colonel Young-ho approached Jiwan and Hanul. He carried a datapad filled with information. Admiral Commander, I have completed my comprehensive study of human military doctrine. The results are fascinating. Share your conclusions, Hanul said. Human military effectiveness comes from 3 core principles. First, they prepare for everything. They assume their plans will fail and have backup plans ready. Second, they adapt faster than any species we have encountered. What works against them once will not work twice. Third, they refuse to accept defeat as an option. That last point troubles many people, Hanul observed. It should, because it means humans will continue fighting long past the point where other species would surrender. They will accept casualties that would break any other military force. Young-ho pulled up data on his pad. I analyzed human military history. They have fought wars that lasted years, decades, even centuries in some cases, and they never stopped believing they could win. What about wars they lost? Jiwan asked. They learned from them. Every defeat taught them something. They studied their failures more carefully than their victories. That is why they keep improving. Marshal Sun-ho joined the conversation. I have recommended to the Hegemony High Command that we adopt human training methods for our elite forces. They are considering the proposal. What was their reaction? Hanul asked. Mixed. Some see the value. Others worry about losing our traditional ways. But after my Crimson Legion's defeat in the training exercise, even the skeptics are listening. General Wu Jin appeared, accompanied by Colonel So-young. The Trade Federation is already implementing human tactical doctrine. Our preliminary results show dramatic improvements in combat effectiveness. How are your soldiers adapting? Jiwan asked. With difficulty. Human methods require independent thinking. Our forces are accustomed to following orders precisely. Learning to improvise is challenging. So-young nodded. The nomad fleets face similar issues. But human advisors are patient teachers. They understand that changing mindset takes time. As the evening progressed, Ji-won found herself in a quiet corner with Colonel Jae-hyun and several other human officers. They fear us, Major Minji said quietly. I can see it in their eyes. They should fear us, Captain Taeyang replied. Not because we are cruel, but because we are capable. Fear based on respect is acceptable. Jae-hyun shook his head. Fear is never the foundation we want. But understanding is. They need to understand that human military doctrine exists because we have learned hard lessons over thousands of years. Do you think they can learn to fight like us? Minji asked. Some will. Others will adapt our methods to their own cultures. That is fine. We are not trying to make everyone into humans. We are sharing what works. Sergeant First Class Dong-yun and Staff Sergeant Yoonji joined the group, both looking tired but satisfied. The engineering officers want to know everything about improvised weapon systems, Yoonji said. I spent 3 hours explaining how we integrated Krek's technology with mining equipment. The tactical officers are obsessed with guerrilla warfare, Dong-hyun added. They cannot believe small forces can defeat larger ones so consistently. It is not about size, Jae-hyun said. It is about effectiveness. One skilled soldier in the right position is worth 100 in the wrong position. Admiral Hanul called for attention, and the room quieted. Before we conclude tonight's celebration, I want to share something. General Seok-jin has prepared a report on the human impact on galactic military operations. General Seok-jin stepped forward with his data display. Over the past 6 months, we have documented 347 conflicts involving human military advisors. The results are consistent and remarkable. The display showed statistics, victory rates, casualty reductions, time to resolution. Every metric showed dramatic improvement when humans were involved. But more important than these numbers is the psychological impact. Enemy forces now avoid conflicts where humans are present. The Krex Horde has abandoned 6 systems entirely because human advisors were training the local defense forces. He paused for emphasis. The humans have achieved something we thought impossible. They have made the Krex afraid. Murmurs spread through the crowd. For centuries, the Krex terrorized the galaxy through fear. Now they experience that fear themselves, not because humans are more savage than the Krex, but because humans are more competent. Seok-jin's final slide showed a simple statement. The most dangerous enemy is not the one who fights with rage, but the one who fights with precision. That is what humans have taught us. Warfare is not about anger or hatred. It is about achieving objectives through the most effective means possible. Humans approach war like any other problem to be solved, and they are very good at solving problems. He looked directly at the human officers. You have earned the galaxy's respect, but you have also earned something else. You have earned our fear. Not because you are evil, but because you are excellent. And excellence in warfare is a terrifying thing. The room fell silent. Colonel Jae-hyun stepped forward. General Seok-jin, may I respond? Please. You say we are feared because we are excellent at warfare. That is true. But understand something important. We did not become excellent because we love war. We became excellent because we had no choice. Humanity spent thousands of years fighting itself. We learned how to wage war because we had to. We perfected violence because our survival depended on it. We studied defeat because we experienced it so often. What you see as natural talent is actually hard-won knowledge paid for in blood over countless generations. We are good at war because we have practiced it more than any species should ever have to. He looked around the room. You fear us because we know how to fight. But we fear ourselves for the same reason. We know what we are capable of. We know the darkness that lives in human hearts when we stop restraining ourselves. That is why we fight with precision rather than rage, why we use tactics instead of terror. We have learned that controlled violence is better than unleashed violence, that professional soldiers are better than savage warriors. The hall was completely silent now. So yes, fear us if you must, but understand that we have earned that fear through suffering, through loss, through hard lessons learned at terrible cost. What you fear in us is what we fear in ourselves. The knowledge that humans can be very, very good at terrible things. Admiral Hanul spoke into the silence. That is why we trust you. Because you understand the weight of what you do. Because you do not take pride in destruction. You take pride in protecting others, she raised her glass. To humanity, may you always be our allies, never our enemies. The toast was repeated throughout the room. As the ceremony concluded, Ji-won found herself reflecting on everything that had happened. 6 months ago, humans were newcomers, barely noticed by galactic society. Now they were senior military advisors, sought after by every civilization. They had proven themselves not through cruelty or overwhelming numbers, but through simple competence. Later, as the Eternal Vigilance prepared to depart, Ji-won stood on the bridge with Colonel Jae-hyun. What happens now? She asked. Now we teach, we train. We help your forces become better. That is all we can do. You have changed the galaxy. The galaxy changed itself. We just showed you what was possible. Ji-won smiled. You are too modest. You have revolutionized warfare, perhaps, but revolution only succeeds if people are ready for it. The galaxy was ready to learn. We were ready to teach. That is all. As the ship jumped to hyperspace, Ji-won pulled up her personal log and began recording her final thoughts on the past 6 months. The humans call themselves unremarkable. They claim they only do what is necessary, but I have learned something important about them. They do not fight because they are brave. They fight because they cannot imagine not fighting. Victory is not their goal. It is their expectation. General Seokjin was right. Humans are the most feared species in the galaxy, not because they are the strongest or the most numerous. They are feared because they simply refuse to lose. Because they see every setback as temporary. Every defeat is educational. Every impossible situation is merely difficult. They have taught us that the most powerful weapon is not technology or numbers. It is mindset. The simple human refusal to admit that some problems cannot be solved. The galaxy will never be the same. We have learned that war is not about who has the biggest fleet or the most advanced weapons. It is about who is willing to do whatever it takes to win. And humans are always willing to do whatever it takes. She ended the log entry and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, human advisors were training new forces, teaching new tactics, spreading their philosophy of warfare across the galaxy. The age of humans had begun, and the galaxy would learn to fight like humans whether it wanted to or not. Because once you had seen what was possible, you could never go back to old ways. Admiral Hunnell was right. Humans were now the most feared species in known space. But that fear was built on respect, on competence, on the simple truth that when humans committed to something, they did not fail. The galaxy had learned its lesson. And that lesson was simple: never underestimate humans. Because they will always exceed expectations. They will always find a way. They will always refuse to quit. That was what made them dangerous. That was what made them invaluable. And that was what made them feared. The end 2 years had passed since humans became senior military advisors to the Galactic Defense Coalition. Commander Jiwon, now promoted to Admiral, stood in the new Coalition War College on the planet Harmony. The building stretched across kilometers of carefully maintained grounds. Inside, officers from every known species studied side by side. What made this academy different from all others was simple. It was run by humans. Admiral Jiwon walked through the main training hall where Colonel Jaehyun was conducting a lecture on strategic planning. The room was filled with senior officers, some with decades of military experience. All of them were taking notes as Jaehyun explained human military philosophy. Strategy is not about having the perfect plan, Jaehyun said, gesturing at a holographic battlefield display. Strategy is about having a plan that can adapt when everything goes wrong, because everything will go wrong. A Zephyrian captain raised his hand. Colonel, in my culture we believe that proper planning prevents failure. You suggest we should expect failure? I suggest you should prepare for it, Jaehyun corrected. Hope for success, plan for failure. That way you are ready for both. Jiwon watched as the officers processed this idea. 2 years ago, such thinking would have been dismissed as defeatist. Now it was standard coalition doctrine. She moved to another section of the academy where Major Minji was teaching small unit tactics. The students were conducting a practical exercise in urban warfare simulation. Minji watched them work, occasionally offering corrections.
Stop, Minji called out.
Team 3, why did you enter that building through the main entrance? A young Aquarian lieutenant looked confused. Because that is where the entrance is located? That is where the obvious entrance is. The one your enemy expects you to use. Look again. Where else could you enter? The lieutenant studied the simulation. The windows, the roof. Exactly. Never do what your enemy expects. Always have another option. Jiwon smiled. Human thinking was spreading. Officers who had trained here were returning to their homeworlds and teaching others. The effect was multiplying across the galaxy. In another building, Staff Sergeant Yoonji was demonstrating equipment improvisation to a group of combat engineers. She had a pile of random parts scattered across a workbench. You will not always have the right equipment, Yoonji explained. Sometimes you need to build what you need from what you have. Watch. Her hands moved quickly, assembling components in ways that should not work according to standard engineering principles. Within minutes, she had created a functional communications relay from spare parts. The engineers watched in amazement. One brave soul asked, "How do you know this will work?" "I do not know for certain," Yoonji admitted. "But I understand the principles. If I understand how something works, I can usually make it work differently when needed." Admiral Jiwon continued her tour, making notes. The transformation of galactic military thinking was proceeding faster than anyone had predicted. But there were complications. She made her way to the Academy's command center, where General Seokjin was meeting with other senior coalition leaders. They had requested this meeting urgently. "Admiral Jiwon, thank you for coming," Seokjin said. We have a situation that requires human insight. Marshal Yuna activated a star map. Red markers indicated multiple conflict zones. The problem is spreading. Not just human tactics, but human philosophy. And not everyone is using it responsibly. Explain, G1 said. 3 border conflicts have escalated dramatically in the past month. Both sides are using human-style tactics. Both sides refuse to negotiate. Both sides believe they can achieve total victory. General Wu Jin added more information. The Tarkin Confederation and the Bellan Union have been in a minor territorial dispute for years. Normally they would negotiate, compromise, reach some agreement. But both hired human military advisors. Now they are fighting a total war. Jiwan felt a chill. Which advisors? None from the coalition. Independent human mercenaries. Former soldiers who saw the money that could be made selling their knowledge. This was the problem humans had worried about. Their military expertise was valuable. Too valuable. Some humans could not resist selling it to the highest bidder. What is the current situation? Jiwan asked. Marshal Sunho pulled up combat footage. Both sides are dug in. Both are using human tactics effectively. Neither will accept anything less than unconditional surrender. The conflict has already killed millions and shows no sign of ending. We need to stop this, Admiral Hanul said, entering the room. But we cannot simply order them to cease fighting. They believe they can win. Because humans taught them that winning is always possible, Yuna said bitterly. We feared this would happen. Human doctrine without human restraint. Jiwan studied the tactical situation carefully. Where are the human advisors now? Both are still embedded with their respective forces. Both are being paid enormous sums to continue advising. Then we remove them. How? They are protected by their employers. They are technically not breaking any laws. Jiwan turned to General Seokjin. Send for Colonel Jaehyun. We need a human solution to a human problem. 20 minutes later, Jaehyun entered the command center. He studied the situation quickly, his expression growing darker as he understood what was happening. This is exactly what we feared, he said quietly. Human methods without human values. Can you stop it? Hanul asked. I can try. But first I need authorization to contact both advisors directly, and I need permission to do things that may make the coalition uncomfortable. What do you mean? Yuna asked suspiciously. I mean, I need to remind these advisors who they really are, and what happens when humans forget the